Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A While Back. This episode has a unique title. This is an episode that I consider to be one of the historical importance to the family because of what has happened ever since I was probably around 3 or 4 years old. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about specifically, because there's 3 different titles I thought of. The first title I thought was maybe Tough as Nails. It didn't quite fit. Bend but never break. Still didn't quite fit. A living legend. Still didn't quite fit. So what I decided to go with for this title is Larger Than Life. Now, we have to make sure that we preface everything by saying flat out that neither Dad nor Mom have any idea of the questions or the concept that's coming from this episode. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so we're still keeping it real and spontaneous as far as their answers go. This is going to be an extremely important episode, so I need you specifically, and I need you to jump in if you hear any inconsistencies. But I need you to be as specific as you can remember.
Okay.
All right. So now, larger than life. Why do we call it that? Well, there have been 3 times growing up that I remember, and I know there was a few more that I don't remember, that you were severely injured and you miraculously somehow recovered extremely quick from 3 very bad injuries. That's why today's episode is titled Larger Than Life. We're going to talk about these 3 situations, these 3 accidents, and I want you to elaborate on it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So now the first one. So let's talk about the very first major accident that you had that I remember. And that was the fall from the Dentler truck with the glass jar.
Okay.
All right. So can you go on and describe what happened, where you were, and when did you realize that you had to get to the hospital ASAP?
Okay, well, this happened back, I think, in
Hold on a second.
1978. This happened back in 1978, I think it was. And what I was doing, I was working for the chip company at that time. And I was selling these glass jar pickles.
Right.
And what I did, I had a step van, and you'd step out of the van. When I stepped out of the van, what happened, I was always in a hurry. So I was in a big hurry. I stepped out of the van. I hit this air hose, and I fell down. And when I fell down, what it did, the gallon broke in half, but it left a jagged part like this on it. And I fell right on that jagged part with my left hand. And you can see the scars.
Yes.
And I cut it clean to the bone.
I remember.
And that thing was bleeding so bad. And I remember the station owner, which was Arnold. I'm not going to mention any last names because I don't know if they want me to. But anyway, Arnold, and he helped me, and he said, we got to get you to the doctor because it was bleeding so bad. And at that time, as dumb as I was, I didn't know you could wrap a tourniquet around there. And so, I mean, all this bodybuilding that I did at home, lifting them old rear ends and stuff, empty rear ends. I mean, I stuck my right hand on there, clamped it as hard as I could to stop the flow of blood. But when it first started, that blood was shooting about maybe 5-10 feet away. It cut the artery in half.
Right.
And so the blood was shooting real bad. When I put the pressure on it, this Barry, I'll call him, and I'll never forget him. He saved my life because he put me in his car, and that blood was just, I couldn't stop it because it was still bleeding real bad. But I remember going to the hospital, and he would try to slow down for a red light, and I'd tell him, Barry, don't you dare slow down for that red light. I'll be dead before you get me to the hospital. I was probably at least 3 miles from the hospital.
You were at Crescent Valley. You were 5 miles out.
No, I was at
Arnold's.
Right at
North
Arnold's. It was about 3 miles, I
Right.
would think. But anyway, he would slow down for these red lights. I said, man, Goose said go. I said, that cops, they don't care. I said, I'm dying, man. And I was scared, man. And so he kept on going, and he finally got me to the hospial. And I got to the hospital, and they looked at me, I was white as a sheet, I guess. I lost probably all the blood. And so the first thing they did was start pumping blood in me. And I remember after they pumped the blood in me and stuff, I started to get my strength back a little bit. But then I'll never forget when he showed me that blood. That whole floorboard was covered with blood. I felt so sorry for that guy. I said, man. And to this day, I just want to thank him from the bottom of my heart because he saved my life. But of course, like they say, I guess God didn't want me at the time, and the devil wouldn't have me.
Exactly.
So here I am. But no, I was my guardian angel. That's a joke, but no, my guardian angel, I guess, the one that kept me alive through this, and I got over it. And I know
Absolutely.
Teresa came to the hospital at that
Yeah, I
time.
got
We
a
weren't
call.
married. Yeah, you got a call, and we weren't married really, but what, about 8 years, something like that.
Almost 10.
And yeah, and she was,
Had
What?
little kids at home, all
Yeah.
4 little kids
oh
at
yeah,
home.
4 kids.
All right, so that's what I was going to ask you next. So what was it like when you first got the call that he was in the ER? And did they give you specifics? What happened? What did you do immediately?
No, just they had told me that he had gotten cut. And I hurry up and called Clyde. Thank God my brother and sister-in-law lived a few doors down. So I called them and left the kids with them, and I took off to the hospital to be with them.
Right. And when you got there, were you able to go in and talk to him?
No, I didn't see him right away.
All right.
But they were tending to him. Was it Dr. Bishop?
Yeah, Dr.
The
Bishop.
first one, I think, that was working on him.
Okay, so since Dad was the only breadwinner in the family at that time, how did that affect the family financially? How long were you incapacitated? What happened? What was it like at that point in time?
No, we've always had insurance all the time.
Good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it didn't slow down anything?
No, it did. You know, it didn't affect me that much because what I did, I was at that time I was with Pat Milk, and what they did, they put me on a short-term disability, and then after my short-term disability went out, which short-term you get about, I think you get about 90% of your pay or 80.
Oh, good.
It was
Okay.
real good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there for about 3 months, I guess I was on short-term disability.
Yeah,
And then
nothing.
after that, they put me on the long-term. But remember when that happened, my arm was like this. It was in a claw. And the doctor told me, he said, you just well get used to it. Your hand's going to probably stay like this. You're going to be a claw like this. And that was pretty hard for me to accept. But so then I found another doctor. I asked him, well, is there anybody else that could maybe help me, Dr. Bishop? And he said, well, there's a Dr. Ira. And he was a specialist.
Mhm.
And he sent me to that specialist. And then what he did, he went ahead and he cut it.
Through the nerves.
Cut it all off, and what he did, he got all that, what you call that growth? The
Scar tissue?
Scar tissue.
Yeah.
He took all that scar tissue off, scraped it off real good, and then he reconnected that nerve,
Mhm.
and he told me, he said, now you go to a therapist, and I went to a great therapist, and well, I'll just say his first name, and I'll still say you're the greatest therapist ever, David. And he would take me and he'd work my hand back and forth, and you talked about it stiff. This arm was as stiff as a board, and that hand was as stiff as a board, and he'd work it, and I'd just grimace in pain. And after a while, after he worked it a good while, I finally got my hand moving pretty much like it should. Of course, I lost the end of the little pinky finger,
But that took us working it
Do you
nonstop.
remember?
I remember.
Oh yeah, and y'all worked with
Absolutely, I
the
remember.
kids.
Always work them fingers,
Yeah.
bend them back, work them
Yeah.
hands.
And remember when
Yep.
I got that electric,
Little
That little vibrating
that
thing that you
vibrating
put on it
deal
just to
you
get
put
the
on
nerves-
there,
yeah,
just
electrical shock. Yeah.
that little electrical shock, and you
Yep.
just keep on.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that was probably, we're going to say that was the worst accident 1.5 Because there was another one, and we're going to bring it up. There was 1.1. But the second one I'm going to bring up is the second accident that we remember, and everybody remembers because it was right out here. The second accident happened when we moved out here, and Dad was mowing in just flip-flops, and he was real close to the fence. So, Dad, you want to describe what happened with that situation?
Oh, well, what I was doing, I was mowing with flip-flops, and what happened, I had a rock hit me in the side of the foot, and then went in, and I don't know, is the rock still in there today?
Maybe that's the
don't know.
problem, yeah.
Maybe that could be my problem. That rock still might be in that foot today, I don't know. But anyway, I went ahead and got it x-rayed or whatever, and they say it wasn't in there anymore, so I don't know. I guess it's not. But yeah, that's, of course, I was always the type that, always wanted to go barefoot and stuff.
Right, I know.
I didn't like to wear shoes.
Right.
I still don't like to wear shoes, but now I have to because my feet just not as tough as they used to be.
So what I remember about that was I remember you crawling up to the patio, and you were in a lot of pain, which we came outside and we saw it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what was your recollection of that? What do you remember specifically?
I don't remember anything about it.
Really?
That was a minor one.
Oh, I know that was. I know. That's why I said this is just the second one. So for that one there,
But
I remember you loading him up in the car and taking him right away.
Several times.
I know. Hold on. We got more.
But I guarantee you one thing I'll give credit to is my guardian angel. That's
Yeah,
the
we
only
know.
one.
I know.
He stays
Nah,
busy. Yes,
I
we
keep
know.
him busy. I work him overtime.
Exactly. That's
Poor
true.
guardian angel I have.
So for that one, were you incapacitated for a couple of weeks? How long were you out from work?
Oh, I don't know how long I was out.
'Cause I remember you made a quick recovery.
I don't think I even stayed out of work.
Yeah, because I remember you making a quick recovery, and I was
That
surprised by that too.
I was one of those. It
He
took
better have made a quick recovery.
Tuition wasn't free.
He hit me with a rock too in my foot. I still got the
Oh,
spot.
that's right.
Mowing?
Yeah,
See?
he's bad with the mowers.
Unbelievable.
But that's life, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the what could possibly be defined as the worst one. That's why I said there's 1.1 and
Don't bring that
1.0.
one up.
The worst one that happened was also the most recent. So the most recent, and God willing, the very last accident you're going to have was when you were run over by a tractor you were driving. So do you want to go into detail on that? Because I'm going to also ask her what she remembers about that day.
No,
So tell us first
I remember.
what happened and where.
Okay, actually what happened was I had a knee surgery, okay? And I was just recovering from the knee surgery. This was Wednesday, and I was supposed to go back to work Monday. And she went to
Yes, he
school,
was supposed to go to
and she
work.
told me, she said, honey
Don't.
or dear, I don't know what she called me at that time, but let me
So
tell
it
you,
wasn't just
this
you
the way
get up?
this the way a marriage
Leave that patio.
this the way a marriage works. First 25 years they
Yeah.
call you honey.
Oh yeah.
Next 25 years it's dear.
Oh,
And
well,
then
see?
after 25 years they call you Dada.
Oh.
You know what Dada means? That means dad in Czech. So that's the way.
So-
That's the way a
No,
marriage
I got
works.
better.
So it slowly goes down every
Oh
25.
well, yeah.
Oh,
And,
well.
and the thing about it is, the sad part about it is, we go to thinking,
Uh-huh.
and I'll think of something, and I'll tell her, and she said, "Well, I was thinking the same thing." Isn't that
That's
scary?
That's scary.
But that's what happens, you go to thinking the
Yeah.
light. After I guess so many years,
All right, well, let's get back to the
Yeah.
tractor.
Okay.
Back
Oh,
to the
okay.
track.
Get
Yes.
back to the track.
Let's
Oh,
talk about that in
man,
detail because
man.
people
Okay.
need to hear this.
She was working at the school that time, and so she went to work, and she said, "Norbert, don't you dare get on that tractor or do anything.
Right.
Just stay over here at the house, and when I come home, then you can, do what you want."
I allowed him on the patio. That was his limit.
Yeah,
Patio.
patio. So, not me, man. I had just tuned that tractor up,
Right.
and that tractor ran like a charm.
You did.
So I went and I got on that old tractor, cranked it right up, and went over there to the pond. I said, "Man, I might go fishing," and took me a pole, and then I decided, well, maybe I won't fish. So I'll go back home because I was thinking about what she told me. So I get on the side of that tractor, I put that switch on, and I barely hit that starter. I can guarantee you that tractor would have never started a million times like it did that day. But the minute I touched that starter, that thing just fired up and it was in third gear. And what it did, it took off, and I had a post hole digger on the back of it. And it took off, and I was leaning over like this, and it slung me under the rear tire, and it ran over my chest and got part of my side of my face because I had tractor marks yet on the face. But it ran me over, and I laid there on the ground. I said, I knew I was dead. I said, oh, hell, I'm dead, Ray.
Yeah.
Then I realized I was alive. So, man, I jumped up. Tractor was headed straight for the house. It was a barbed wire fence there, grass this high. It was one of our better years where it rained real good. Grass was that high, and man, that tractor was headed for the house. And I knew I was in trouble. So I took off running after that tractor. I just barely got to it and cut that switch off and killed that tractor. And then I ran on home, and I sat on the patio for a while, and I said, guess I'll get over this. I mean, I said, I can't call. My wife's going to kill me if she finds out I was out there where she told me to stay at home.
So you'd rather endure the pain.
So I endured the pain for a good while, and then slowly it got worse. So I called my daughter, and I said, hey, you know what? I got ran over by a tractor. You better get over here because I started hurting more and more. And so Brenda over here rushed down here. They rushed down here as quick as they could, and I guess they got here in about 5 minutes. And I was sitting on that on that patio, and they had called the ambulance. And by that time when they got here, I guess about 3 more minutes or something, ambulance come flying in.
Fire truck.
And fire truck, yeah. And they said, hey, do you want us to call a helicopter? We're going to fly you in because you're not in the best of shape. And I said, oh, no. I said, just throw me in that ambulance and get me to the hospital. I said, I'll be all right. So they put me in the ambulance on a stretcher and got me in the hospital and taking me down the road. And they kept pressing on my chest. And I kept telling them, hey, man, that hurts. What are y'all doing? I mean, why are y'all pressing my chest in? And they said, well, your ribs are coming out of your cavity here. We got to hold your ribs in until we get to the hospital. And so finally we got to the hospital. It seemed like a 100-mile drive. Got to the hospital, and I'll never forget my doctor that time, Dr. Clemens. I'm going to say Clemens. I'll say his name. I don't think he'll mind. But anyway, Dr. Clemens, he looked at me and he said, they called him in. He came over there and he said, man, he said, that's going to hurt. He said, you're filled with blood. He said, I'm going to have to hit you with this knife. So he just took that old knife and he hit me in here. I said, oh, I don't care. I said, I'm in so much pain. I couldn't even fell a knife at that time. But anyway, he hit me with that knife in here, and the only time I felt it was when he tried to hit that tube in me. That first time he hit that tube and he hit my rib, and I could feel that. And he pulled it out again, and then he hit it the second time, and he got in there wherever it needed to go and drained the blood out of me. And after that, after he drained the blood out of me, I guess pulled through. But I tell you what, they had me. That was the worst pain I ever had. I think I had, 7 broken ribs? 7 broken ribs and a punctured lung. And, the tank, I ran at least a good 100 yards probably from the tank to that patio. Yeah. And on this reason, I can say the guardian angel, he carried me on his wings. I couldn't have run that far.
So we know the guardian angel has saved you several times.
Yes.
I work him overtime.
I know. So we know good and well because when I first heard about it, she had called, so we ran in real quick. I remember specifically her saying that you had gotten up raced after the tractor and turned it off after it ran you over.
Right.
I was shocked. I'd never heard of such a thing. So you were running on pure adrenaline,
I
and
had
you
to.
absolutely positively did not want that tractor damage anyway.
I didn't want that tractor hitting that house. I really wasn't big enough trouble. Right.
Yeah, you were in big enough trouble, all right. So that's why I want to call this episode Larger Than Life. Because I can't think
Not really.
of too many, well, I know you say that, but I can't think of too many men that would have survived some of the things that you've really gone through. How many other men can say I have tractor marks on the side of my face and my chest, and I got up and ran down that tractor? Very few.
Well,
They
yeah.
might
Yeah.
have nice wives.
So-
God, but the God, I mean, God did that for me. I'm
Oh,
not
he
going to
did.
take no credit for any of that.
So now, Mom, what was your take? What happened? When did you find
I
out?
first found out I was working, and I got a text from Brenda, and she called me. I saw her phone number, and I saw 911 on the end of her phone number, and I said, "Oh my God, something's happened." So I hurry up and took off from school, and I called her on the way, and she told me what had happened. So I drove up. I saw that fire truck and ambulance. I said, "Oh my God, I hope he's all right." And as soon as I got out of the car, they told me, "Come on, if you want to go." I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, get inside the ambulance up front." So I did. I sat up front. And going all the way into town, he was telling him about Johnny Cash and these Western songs, trying to sing them. And that driver said,
Really?
"I don't know how he's
remember
doing
that.
said, I don't know how he's doing that with the shape he's in." I said, "Oh, he's pretty hard-headed. He can do it."
That's hilarious. I hadn't heard that part. That's news
I
to
didn't
me.
know that either. I
Nope,
didn't
I
know
never
that.
told you.
You never told me?
No.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
No, I was telling you, you're
I didn't know I
hard-headed
was
all
that,
the
I didn't know I
time.
was that cuckoo.
But then I called John, like you said, all the kids came. But at the hospital, I know he was in a lot of pain.
Oh, yeah, he was.
even told me, he said,
Oh.
"I'm ready to go." He said, "The good Lord needs to take me. I'm in too much pain." God, no, the good Lord don't want you.
And it happened to be true.
So
He sure didn't want
left
you
him
yet,
there.
that's for sure.
God, no, you can't give up. You gotta
So-
hang in there. So he did.
But the worst thing at that time was the therapy. They had me getting up and going to, I guess after about 3 days, they had me, or 2 days, had me going over there, putting me in that wheelchair and taking me over
2
there.
days after you were out
Finally,
in
I told him, I
ICU,
said, "Man," I said, "don't put me in this
you
wheelchair.
were
I'm just,
in ICU.
I was
first
just
for so long."
sweating in pain." I said, "Just keep me in this room, and can the therapist come over here in the room?" And they agreed to that, and they finally got the therapist coming to my room, which was a lot better. And of course, I had a good friend too that time, Joe, that was real good at the hospital. I gotta give him a little kudos. He was real nice to me and stuff.
Well, heck, that was
That was
the
a
last
bad
one was the
situation.
one that
Yeah.
was
See what
very bad.
happens
And
when you
Dr.
don't
Clemens
listen.
was the man.
I told him, "Stay on the patio."
All you can
That's
do
as
is tell
far
him.
as you
I mean,
go.
you can't watch him.
He was going back to work. It was a Friday, Monday. He was going to work.
You should have heard that.
After being off 6 weeks with the knee
Yeah.
surgery,
And
what
what
do
did he
you
do?
think Kellogg
You
said?
would think.
Yeah.
And then he
But-
said,
What did my boss say? He couldn't believe it. My competitor found out I had got ran over by that tractor.
Yeah, exactly.
And he told my boss, and my boss said, "What?" He said, "Quit lying to me. Quit joking with me. That man couldn't have got ran over by a tractor. He's at home recovering from knee surgery."
"Yeah." And here he
Yeah,
was fixing to get to go back home because you were coming back to work.
So
and
like-
look what you did
Yeah.
to him.
Like we had mentioned, there was two things that saved you: your guardian angel, but the
Oh,
second thing
yeah.
that saved you a lot was the fact that it was right there by that pond,
Yeah.
and it was all mud that you got underneath you. That cushioned
Yeah,
a lot of
that
it.
did. That
And
did. That
just
power-
your
yep.
just your own tolerance for pain saved you a lot
Yeah.
right there too. So
That's why I always tell her she'll.
and fear and adrenaline.
I'll have a sticker or something. She says, "I'm gonna hurt you." I say, "You can't hurt me. I'm immune to pain." You know.
So
Oh.
is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, that's the story on that one. That was a bad one. I don't
That
like
was.
to think
I
about
remember
that.
That
one.
was a
That
bad one. I want to think about it.
I know when you had called me and told me about it, I said, "What are you talking about? He
Yeah.
got ran over by a tractor."
Yeah.
I said, "The tractor's only going to be doing 2 miles an hour. How did he get run over?" And then when you told me about the details on it, I was like,
I
oh
told
my
him,
God.
you are never getting on that tractor
I was shocked by
again. Never, never, never.
How did that work out for you?
Then-
Did that work out for
Then he
you?
got him a John Deere.
I know. So
They
that's
helped
when
the
this
other
tractor
one.
came into play.
Yes.
Well, I had this tractor at that time, but I just wanted to keep the other one in good
I know.
running shape too.
Yeah, I'm glad you kept it. I'm sure you're happy you
Oh
did too.
yeah.
though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is just a recap, real fast. I want to make sure everybody understands this. So everything that we just discussed was not made up, first and foremost. These situations, accidents really did happen. But when it happened, each of these was much more intense, much more dangerous than we talk about today. When we talk about it today, we look back on it with fond memories. But when it happened, there was no joking involved. It was a very serious situation with every one of them. They were both all three of them were extremely serious. I hope after listening to these three accidents that you get a better idea of why now I decided to title this Larger Than Life. And the reason that I'm saying that at the very end is because of the fact that for the past, what am I going to be, 52 this year. For the past 52 years, no matter how old I got or how tall I got, I feel like every time I look at Dad, I'm looking up to him. And no matter what, and this is no joke, I think I speak probably for Brian, Brendan, and Stephen as well. I may have passed you in height at around 19 or 20, but it still seems like even at 52, I'm still looking up to you.
Oh,
And I think that's just because...
well, thank you. I think you just aligned to me.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm saying this genuinely.
Okay.
So this is why I said Larger Than Life is probably the best title
Well,
for this podcast.
I don't know, but I don't like that title. I ain't larger than life.
Well, what you just described seems to describe it well.
Well,
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's all thanks to your guardian angel.
oh yeah,
Amen.
that you said right.
You made that quite clear. So Dad, final question. Is there anything else you want to say?
Let me tell you something else.